All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Law. I'm the EADOC founder and CEO. And Ron Perkins, who is going to be my co-presenter this morning, he's an HDR vice president. He oversees construction services out of their Sacramento office here in California. We're going to be providing you with some insight, some background on preparing for plant operations and maintenance prior to commencement of construction. Throughout this presentation, feel free to post questions to the chat log, and then we'll go ahead and answer them at the end of the presentation, or we'll unmute the audience, and we'll go ahead and provide that to the entire group. We'll do the audio questions at the end as well for you. Currently, everybody's on mute. So in diving into preparing for plant operations and maintenance, one of the things we want to take a look at is the background for you guys. And a little bit of background is looking at the cost. What does it cost to operate and maintain a facility in compared to the total capital costs? When we look at the operations cost, typically it's about 75% of a facility's total life cycle cost goes on to the operations and maintenance side. So the capital cost, design and construction, is only 25% of a project. This means a lot of the decisions that are made throughout the design and construction phase are going to have a tremendous impact on the operations and maintenance side, especially when you look at the duration. Typical design and construction phases are 2 to 5 years, where you may be operating this facility for 20 to 50 years or even longer. And so a lot of these decisions that are made in that small window of time, 2 to 5 years, small budgets, 25% of total costs, are going to have a substantial impact on those projects. And so one of the things we want to look at is how can we help you guys make better decisions on the design and construction side and tracking the information to reduce the costs and reduce the management expenditures during operations and maintenance. One of the key aspects we try and stress with all of our clients is planning for O&M should take place during the design phase. Traditionally in the past, a lot of these projects, the planning has been done after the project's complete. During startup and testing, we'll turn the facility over, the plan over to the operations and maintenance team and say, here's all the information, here's all your paper files, run with it. What you need to be doing is looking more during the design phase when you're choosing equipment, you're choosing SCADA and building automation systems, you're selecting the equipment and vendors, and bringing that operations and maintenance team into those decisions. Because what you want to also be doing is not just identifying what those materials are, but you want to be identifying on how you're going to track the information related to it. When you select a generator for a project, how are you going to track the warranties? How are you going to track the O&M manuals? How are you going to track startup and testing plans? All related to that major piece of equipment. And those decisions should all be made during the design and then the construction phase of the project when you're capturing all this information from the designers and the contractors. Traditionally, as I mentioned, those standard procedures, O&M maintenance staff had a minor involvement during design and construction. They're typically brought in when the project was going through startup and testing phases and handed a project. Typically, they're completely separate departments that had nothing to do with the capital projects, depending on your structures. And then when the facility is complete, they're handed large 3-ring binders of paper, are turned over to these project participants. And these are the guys that have to operate this plant or this facility day in and day out for the next 20 to 50 years. And so turning them over binders and just kind of flipping over the wall, as most people called it, is not the most practical approach. Also, a lot of times these binders were stored in basements and storage lockers. They were put in facilities that were not conducive to paper storage. We've seen in numerous facilities where they are rotting and molding in facilities because the 3-ring binders provided very low value to the operations and maintenance group. Perfect example that I saw at a CMAA presentation here last week in Chicago was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They took a look at a maintenance guy here in Fort Lewis back in 2009, and here he is going through binders of information trying to find warranty information on a particular piece of equipment that had failed there at the base. And he's spending hours and hours digging through, as you can see, banker's boxes and rolls of drawings looking for the warranty information on that particular project. So it's not a very efficient process to track it and turn it over on paper. So with the advent of electronics, with the papers, you can't search, it takes up large amounts of room, no relationships between paper and the equipment. It makes a huge amount of labor gets wasted. So with electronic O&Ms, the better way is now it's searchable. So the maintenance guy can do keyword searches. He can be browsing the information as desk instead of digging through boxes. You're going to have intelligent O&Ms, which Ron Perkins is going to talk about a little more later on here in the presentation, where it allows for relationships to be managed. So I could look up a major material and I can see my warranties, my test reports, everything relevant to it. It can even be accessed from a tablet in the field. So, on these larger facilities where you're up in the mechanical room or an electrical room, you can bring up the tablet and I can bring up drawings, I can bring up operations and maintenance manuals, everything related to that piece of equipment that has failed or having issues or where I need to be doing some research on. So it's a much more productive way of using the information on these projects. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Ron Perkins, and he's going to talk a little bit about the intelligent O&Ms that they've used and some examples for you guys of collecting the information and how it can be presented in formats to be used during the operations and maintenance phase.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Again, welcome everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen here. This is a screen capture of an electronic O&M manual the HDR prepared for a project in Monterey, I believe, for a biosolids facility, for a wastewater treatment plant. And the example that's shown right now is on the left-hand side you can see the information that you can pull up, and on the right-hand side, for example, on the equipment O&M manuals, which I'll show later, some details in terms of what those manuals themselves look like. But this provides an operator the ability to go into any part of his treatment plant and find the information that he needs. And this is something HDR is doing on a lot of the projects now. So I'll get into a little bit more details. In addition to the O&M manuals, you can provide cut sheets for the specific equipment. This is actually from the city of Healdsburg, wastewater treatment plant, the MBR facility there. So you can get into the process diagrams for the operators and then get into even showing them photographs. This is actually the MBR facility as it was built. And you can even show construction information, all these web-based on these servers that we provide to the client for them to do their O&M manuals. Specifically, we talk about O&M manuals, and there's, as Eric talked about, if you require the contractor up front to provide your O&M manuals in an electronic format like a PDF, instead of just being scanned, a smarter PDF can really also help. So this is an example, a cover sheet for an O&M manual, but let me go into a smarter one as an example. This is an actual O&M submittal for a Bozeman wastewater treatment plant project, and this shows the cover sheet as showing the electronic review by HDR, the engineer. But on the left-hand side, you can see this is actually a smart table of contents for this whole PDF. Gets into the specifics of that whole submittal. You want the motor information, parts list, all these things are easily searchable. Getting into that specific piece of equipment, even all the way down to bill of materials. It could even be spare parts, and then it even shows here the certified performance test results. And the advantage of this is that the operator now has all the information they can get to very easily, a very simple graphic location based. They don't have to search through the papers. As Eric talked about, the warranty information is right here. Everything's in one place. It's very easy to do, and a lot of the owners are going to it. But obviously, to get this kind of information on a smart level, it's really easy to have a contractor do it. The designer doesn't have to do it. The CM doesn't have to do it. If you require the contractor to provide it this way, that could save a lot of time in itself. That's the basic. I know I'll be here for questions afterwards, but Eric?
Sounds good. Thanks, Ron. And one of the key things too is putting this in the specs up front. You know, as you go through the design phase and you're writing the specs, you want to identify how do you want to capture this information from the contractor. So if you're going to require the contractors to do it, you want to make sure in your specifications you tell the contractors we want it in PDFs, we want table of contents, we want links, we want this relationship, and tell them what information to do it. Is it a PDF per piece of equipment, or is it a PDF per spec section? So when you're defining those requirements in your specifications, when you're working with your designers on those specs, make sure you put in the details. So when the contractors bid the job and end up putting together these O&M manuals for you, they put them together in the format you guys want them. And we're going to go into a couple different options here as well for these particular O&M manuals and the data, how you can collect them. So you saw the example there from Ron. So we'll go ahead and bring up. As we wait for my screen to refresh here. And so a couple different examples are obviously the PDFs that we're seeing from Ron, and then also going into FM systems. You know, if you guys have a facilities management system, how do you want to find the information that's going to go into it? Are PDFs going to be able to go into the FM system, or are you guys going to want to turn it over into a CSV file or a flat file that gets imported into that FM system? So these are all questions that you need to be asking during the design phase, because when you're identifying this major equipment, you're going to want to identify the information you're going to track with it. So you're going to want to identify warranties, O&M manuals, test reports. How's this information going to be tracked when the contractors are submitting on it? So when it goes through that review process during construction. And then, as we noted earlier, what usable format will be delivered into the owner when the project is complete. Paper should not be an option these days. You want the information coming in electronically so you can reuse it. With paper, you're going to have to scan it. You're going to have to pay people to re-enter that data. It is a complete waste of time and money on capital projects. There are so many different tools available to you guys to track this information that every spec should be updated with some electronic format for capturing the O&M information, the warranties. What we're going to do is we're going to jump out of the PowerPoint slides here. I'm going to talk a little bit about tracking information electronically within the EADOC application, some of the tools that we provide for you guys related to the major materials and related to location tracking as well. So we'll go ahead and bring up my screen here. And so what I've got here on the screen is I've got some cooling water pumps I brought up as an example. This is within a wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. We've got some pump information that's been put into the system, and this information is typically going to be entered during the design phase. So as soon as those designers begin to identify those equipment lists of materials, the major materials on the project, you can load those into the EADOC system so you can begin tracking the information related to it. And with these systems, what I can do is I can run a report here that says, okay, give me all the information related to my cooling water pumps. And so it's going to show me contractor submittals that have been turned in related to it. It could be related instrumentation that ties in with these cooling water pumps, like these temperature measurement sensors. It could be the manuals for the water pump control panels, operations and maintenance manuals, product data, technical data on motors. It could be questions that have come in. It's going to be the inspections. It's going to be inspector daily reports. All the documentation and communication around these major materials is being tracked electronically throughout the design and construction phase of these projects. And the main objective of this, the whole benefit doing it throughout design and construction, is to turn over very accurate, very detailed information to your operations and maintenance group. You want to track all this information throughout design and construction where all of it's being generated to turn it over to operations and maintenance. And you'll see here from within the system, if I want to take a look at one of these particular submittals that's come in, I can click on it. It's going to take me down into the EADOC submittal form, and I can see my O&M manual here in PDF format. And again, it goes back to the specifications in terms of defining the requirements for capturing these PDFs. You know, intelligent PDFs like Ron was showing with the indexes, they're searchable, they provide a lot more value than the scanned images on the system. And not only can I navigate back and forth, but if I want to go back to my material, I can click on it here in the system. And so capturing this information for use in that next 20 to 50 years of a project is very important to you guys on these projects. Not only can I relate the information to materials, but I can tie it to the relevant locations on my project as well. So for example, if I'm taking a look at a flock sed basin, I can click on my links here and I can see all the submittals related to this particular basin on my project. Better example is this other basin I've got set up. And it shows me mixed design, schedules, RFIs, pictures, all the information that gets generated throughout design and construction is related to this location. This way, when we turn this information over to your FM system or in PDFs to you guys, if the operator goes into a particular area of the project, say these flock sed basins, he can bring up all the schedule value, or not the schedule, but all the submittals, all the warranties, all the O&M manuals for the equipment within that particular location. So it becomes a very powerful tool for them to quickly find the information they need. No more digging through the totes or bins of paper, going through bankers' boxes, digging in the basements. And the other valuable part about doing it electronically is it doesn't matter where that operator is. They can be out on site on the plant with a tablet. They could be in the main operations building and bring up that information on a tablet. You don't have to have multiple copies of paper stored throughout the facility. All they need is access to the information digitally. And there's a lot of different tools that those operators can have to do that. And I can see here I can also navigate around to relevant information, pictures and so forth here in the system. Again, we're making it very easy to capture the information in EADOC throughout the design and construction phases with the intent of turning all this information over to you guys at the end of the capital project for use in your operations and maintenance systems, whether it's a formal FM tool or you're using PDFs that you're giving access to the operators. Go ahead and jump back into a couple PowerPoint slides here. A couple tools that are out there to help us out with this information is some standards that have come on the market in the last 10 years. These standards are still new in terms of construction industry standards, and they're still being adopted by several different organizations. There's a lot of federal agencies that are pushing some of these standards. Army Corps of Engineers is one, GSA is another, and one of them is COBE, and that is the Construction Operations Building Information Exchange. And what this one does is it defines the format, how to track that electronic data. So what structure should your information be in as it goes through a design phase, and what data are you capturing? So you're identifying those materials during your design phase. COBE's telling you how to identify those materials, how to set up that tracking mechanism. Then it says as you go through construction, how should you track warranties? How should you track O&M manuals? How should you track test reports related to these major materials? The SPE, or the Specifiers Properties Information Exchange, this deals more with the material suppliers. So this is what data should be coming from those material suppliers. And so when you combine these two together, you get a really nice mechanism or set of tools for tracking the information throughout the design and construction processes with the intent of reusing that data over and over again as you operate and maintain these facilities. So instead of just flipping these projects over the wall to operations and maintenance, you're actually beginning the process during design, capturing the information as it runs through design and construction in these structured formats. So when you deliver it to your operations and maintenance team, it's 100% usable and it's 100% beneficial in terms of cutting down on O&M costs and managing those facilities. The standards are still relatively new, but as I noted, they have been out for, I believe it's 10 years for COBE and 5 years for the SPE. But they are gaining acceptance. It's definitely something worth looking into as you write your specifications for your next project. So what I'm going to do is jump back into EADOC, show you guys a couple more reports on the system. One of the reports I've got here for you guys, I'll show you guys some warranty information. Some of the things you can do as the project completes is you can bring up, sorry, not an O&M, or warranty, O&M report is the one I'm looking for. So I can run a report that gives me all my submittal O&M manuals on a project. And so again, this is the beginning of the information tracking. I can see all the O&M manuals. And within these reports, I can see those relationships back to the major pieces of material. So I can see my cooling and water pumps. I can run a report. And this is completely exportable CSV. So there's no additional effort needed throughout the construction phase of a project to track all this data tied to cooling water pumps. I can see chemical metering pump control panels here. I can see centrifugal pump skids, all the major materials here on my project. And then I can see operations and maintenance manuals, test reports. Well, this one's filtered to O&M manuals, all related to these major materials. And so the beauty of these electronic tools is we're making it easy to track the information for you guys. And then we're making it even easier to turn over to your operations and maintenance teams for you guys on the projects. So if I want to, I can click on a result. It's going to take me directly to it. And again, this data can be exported. It all depends on what your O&M team is doing. You know, are they using a fully functional FM system where you can import all this data in? And so they can track warranty requests against the data. They can make modifications to the data. If they replace a pump, they can upload the new warranties, the new manuals into the FM system. It really depends on what you guys are using there. But we do encourage you to go at least to the intelligent PDFs. That's definitely a great first step. If you're still using paper on your projects, stop using the paper, go to the intelligent PDFs, and then look at the more formal or structured FM systems for you guys. So what I'll do is I'll bring up the last PowerPoint slide here. And so Ron and I, we'd like to thank you guys for joining our quick little webinar here on preparing for plant operations and maintenance prior to commencement construction. A couple key takeaways for you guys is, as you prepare these projects, update those specifications, identify how you're going to capture that information, and it's going to lead to substantial cost savings on down the road in operations and maintenance.